Let us play. What's up guys, and welcome back to a new episode of our Minecraft hardcore adventure. It's been a long time, but we are finally back, and as you can see, we are live in our Deep Slate mansion for the first time, because I would like to thank you all for your patience and all the support. You really are a great community, and I am lucky to have you. Today, we finally continue with our world, but I must admit that the world was very briefly in danger, because normally I am now at the point where I would start a new world, because I have the feeling that I have already done everything in this one. But since we are in hardcore mode, that would be a bit of a waste, so I've simply overcome that feeling by finding a new place to start an entirely new project for today's episode. I'm super excited to see what you guys have to say about today's project, so don't be afraid to post your opinions in the comments. I'll read every single one and answer them if possible, and also the YouTube algorithm likes it when you write comments diligently, so yes, thank you. But now, enough chatter, let's see where today's episode will take us. Alright, here we are. I flew really far to find a slightly higher place where I can build the foundation stone for a completely new kingdom. You have already been able to follow a large part of the planning as a long play, so I don't need to say much more about it at this point. Only that I finally found a use for birch wood during the planning this time, because the surrounding birch forest was directly converted into the framework of the project, which required over 4 shulkers full of birch. But exactly this very tedious planning, which I would call step 0, now leads us to the first official step of episode 7, the terraforming. To do this, I unfortunately had to use up all my dirt supplies, and in between I kept destroying beautiful far-flung areas by digging them up at high speed, leaving nothing but wasteland. My idea was to build the tower foundations planned at the top, which were partially floating in the air, all the way down to the base of the mountain. But unfortunately the mountain is a bit too steep on one side for this, which would have resulted in the towers ending up looking like columns that were much too long. The simplest solution for this, logically, just build 2 new and somewhat higher levels. Sure. The 2 new levels of the mountain, of course, cannot float in the air consisting only of dirt. They need a connection to the actual ground that seems to make sense. That's why I frequently stocked up on tons of stone in the Deep Slate mansion, so that I could once again build artificial cliff walls like the ones you already know from the Axolotl Sanctuary. Only this time much bigger. You really don't want to know how long that took. Especially it was extremely annoying because I didn't have any torches from home, and therefore monsters appeared again and again, which made my work more difficult, until I could make torches out of found coal and birch wood. I think the shots speak for themselves. I like the new cliffs very much. I think they blend in well with the rest of the mountain, and you get the impression that these levels may have been carved into the rocks by the people living here to make room for the new royal house. I was also able to improve my building skills this way, so while I was watching my favorite streamers on the side, I could fully concentrate on working on the cliffs, and that really was a lot of fun. And we are already done with step 1. Everything is prepared and planned so that we can now slowly but surely start building the actual castle. For that, however, I wanted to cross one important thing off my list, namely to form a suitable staircase to the castle. I'm very happy with the building site because the mountain does a very good job of setting the later castle apart from the rest of the landscape, and above all, making it stand out. Nevertheless, I would like to clarify again distance to the lower part of the kingdom, and therefore I have still taken care of the staircase in the last part of step 1. So a quick jump down from my little observation platform and I'm ready to go. With the staircase I again tried very hard to make the whole thing look natural, or rather as if only small adjustments had to be made to the actual landscape. I took great pains to avoid sharp corners and edges and instead built everything relatively organically. I'll work on this more in a future video and also adjust it to the city that will be added. But now we are done with terraforming and all the planning. At this point I was not aware of how much work would still be waiting for me, because to be honest, these shots here were taken in mid-May and probably do not even represent a quarter of what I wanted to achieve. But there's no use complaining, I just love this game, and that's exactly why it's a pleasure for me to take the next step to the foundation. This step felt by far the longest. I wanted to provide a shallow transition for the towers, so I started with cobblestone, then moved to andesite and built the rest with regular stone. While building, my own planning frame kept getting in the way, so I had to remove it as well. Very tedious, but absolutely worth the effort in my opinion. Also keep in mind that I had to keep flying several thousand blocks in between to replenish my supply of stone. Unfortunately, I was not smart enough to build a nether portal until very late. Oops. After what felt like half an eternity, I was finally finished with all the walls and all the towers. Apart from the decoration and the roofs, of course. However, I had imagined that no wall should be built on the back side of the castle, but instead it should be replaced by a bridge on which the guards of the castle could constantly patrol. This bridge was a bit more complex to design, but in the end it was also built quickly. The bridge I actually imagined rather ostentatious, but still it should be fortified according to its purpose, namely the defense of the fortress. Therefore I have also used stone bricks here, and the bridge additionally supported with pillars to ensure stability. I think the bridge is very beautiful and fits perfectly with the rest of the castle. To finish off the bridge and make it usable, I added a floor of spruce slabs and trapdoors, which was also used in the rest of the castle. Inside the towers, several floors had to be installed from time to time to compensate for the different heights of the walls, but even this was not a problem. So now that this step has also been completed, we can consider step 2 as finished and instead proceed to step 3, a proper entrance. For this step I had to experiment a little bit in the beginning to find a style that I like and that corresponds to a royal entrance gate. Mainly I tried to use different stairs and slabs to create different patterns and ornaments. Feel free to write me what you think of the design in the comments. In fact, building the entrance probably took the least amount of time, which I was really happy about after the long wall and tower session. This gate was also a good opportunity to get a little creative again and try out new methods and possibilities. In any case, I am once again very happy with the result, and I hope you are too. I also used a new building style for the roof by dividing the roof into different parts and building them a few blocks backwards to match the position of the previous parts. This way the entrance gate looks a bit more detached from the rest of the castle. As you can see, this time I also use basalt from time to time for building, and this is simply because I want to approach new blocks step by step to be able to constantly improve and step out of my comfort zone. With this building completed, we'll jump to step 4, which is the towers. In this step we will continue with the design of the towers and, above all, give them a spire. After a short phase of thinking and finding, the design of the individual towers was already decided. All towers will be built and decorated in the same style, except for one of the towers, which will have a special function. However, you will learn more about this later. This step also marks about half of the entire construction. However, I feel like that was still the shorter half, if you know what I mean. There was still a lot to do at this point and we were still in May, so yeah. Anyway, I'm only telling you this because I want you to get an idea of how long a project like this can take. As with our castle on Farm Island, the roofs are once again made of prismarine, but this time of prismarine bricks, which I think match the color of the rest of the castle really well. In total, the castle has 10 towers, which I built in step 4, so all are finished by step 5. All towers actually serve only the purpose of better defense and display of the power of the royal dynasty. In the Middle Ages, it was often the case that towers were always built as high as possible, as this was supposed to symbolize power and closeness to God, so it seemed only logical to build as many high towers as possible. In between, I had to fly to the Guardian farm again and again to stand there for several hours so that I could continue building with prismarine blocks, and I don't even want to know how often I did that in the course of the project. The Guardian farm is in dire need of an upgrade, that's for sure. Finally, the last blocks are placed, which mean the completion of all towers. All in all, a very long but also a very relaxing job. And here you can see again the result of this long work. Depending on where the towers are placed, the decorations differ slightly from each other, but all in all, 9 of the 10 towers are identical. But wait, 9 out of 10? What's that all about, you ask? Well, the 10th and therefore the last tower is the in-house mage tower, which gets a special design. We are in a mystical medieval world that is threatened daily by both known and unknown evils. So from this point of view, it can't hurt to have your own mage at court who can protect the castle and its inhabitants with powerful spells and weapons in emergency situations or save them from dark forces. Who is capable of wielding such power, you ask? We will find out soon. Trust me. The Mage Tower is generally a bit wider than the others because, of course, an alchemical lab has to fit in there later, as well as powerful magical ingredients and potions. The design of the tower is significantly different from the others. I was inspired by a user on Pinterest named IamPixel. You can find the link to his profile on Pinterest below in the video description. Feel free to take a look there. The completion of the Mage Tower also marks the end of step 4. We now come to a very engaging part of the video, which again took me a lot of time and especially a lot of stone. We are talking about step 5, the main castle. Then let's get to work. First, I just replaced the entire frame with stone and raised the walls previously indicated by the frame. Again, a lot of stone was used up and I had to fly back several times to get more. I have spared you this procedure at this point and instead created a small transition for you. My idea was to surround the entire main building with a second battlement with watchtowers in the corners to create an additional line of defense. However, the main castle itself, unlike the walls and the towers, should be characterized by many and large windows as well as more frequent decorative elements. I kept looking at how the whole thing looked from a distance and thinking about what elements could still fit into it. In the end, I decided on a clock-shaped ornament which now decorates the front of the main house. Also, the roof is again built of prismarine bricks, and at this point it might be worth mentioning that once again I didn't take care of the interior in this video. All this will follow in a later video or maybe as a long play. Next, I wanted to build 2 additional towers, but they are more or less non-functional and serve more the purpose of a decorative column in front of the main house. Only the lower part will be walkable, but in the top of these columns you could place a beacon that symbolizes war or peace depending on the color of the light beam. Once again, I followed the rule that higher also means better and more powerful. I think these smaller towers make the castle look a little bit more impressive. Also, without these 2 towers, the main house would kinda look like too flat and probably get lost in the bustle of the other structures around it. But I really have to remember the idea with the beacons, because unfortunately I only thought of it while writing the script, another point that will be added later. I guess I should start making a list of things I want to add, not that I lose the overview. For the second small tower I have created a quick time lapse because I can hardly wait to continue with the project. After these 2 towers were also completed, I thought about how to proceed. It was really a lot of fun for me to be able to decide so freely and think step by step about how the castle would be put together and what I could add next and in which place. In the end, I decided to complete the second battlement by adding 2 more towers to the back of the castle. So I turned my attention to the rear towers, which needed to visually match the style of the main house, but still serve a more defensive purpose again. So I tried again to work with more decorative blocks and ornaments to create a clear boundary to the towers of the wall. I think the bottom line is that I also managed quite well, or what do you say, guys? As you can see, the roof of the main house is still not finished because it was so incredibly time consuming to farm prismarine again and again, so that I had left my PC on again overnight while I stood AFK at the farm to get enough blocks. Only then was I able to finish building the spires of the last 2 watchtowers. And as if it wasn't enough that my PC consumed an entire night's worth of electricity to generate some virtual materials for making virtual blocks to build a virtually existing castle, I was then also harassed by annoying flying wash racks while I was building, delaying the completion of the towers yet again. I'm just kidding, there are far worse than phantoms, because after a cozy nap in the rain, nothing was left of the offenders but wet ash, so 1-0 for me, I guess. After this matter was cleared up, I could finally, and I really mean finally, finish the remaining towers, with which we would have once again completed a large part of the castle. We are slowly but surely approaching the end, and I am so curious what you will say about the result in the end. I invested the remaining prismarine blocks in the construction of the roof before I ran out again. Oh man. But anyway, let's continue with step 6, the fortress tower. I consider this step to be the core of the entire construction because everything I have told you so far about the height and the associated demonstration of power is topped by this colossus. This gigantic tower is the center of the defenses and a real stronghold for all invaders. Anyone wishing to enter the castle, whether guests or attacking troops, must first pass through the spiral staircase inside this complex, dodging volleys of arrows fired from above and hot tar. An almost impregnable architectural masterpiece without equal. I have hardly ever put as much thought into the construction and design of a building as I did with this one. Basically, however, it is still very simply constructed. The tower consists of a foundation of stone, which contains a winding staircase, which is the only way to the top. Other paths past the tower are even more heavily fortified and equipped with numerous guard posts. This makes the castle the Fort Knox of our hardcore world, and I am incredibly proud of it. In addition to the foundation of the fortress, there are now 2 more roofs with vantage points as well as opportunities for firing at attackers inside and outside the castle grounds. This colossus in combination with an own mage should be warning enough for all those who have evil in mind. Surviving an attack on our castle is nothing short of a miracle. With this part of the castle, I couldn't help but embellish a few things inside that had been bothering me as well. But here too I remained very minimalist and have not yet made any major changes except for a few small things. The construction of this huge tower has again extended over several real days, but it was enormous fun to work on it. So feel free to leave a like, a comment or even subscribe to the channel so you can be a part of the future of this emerging kingdom. With the last part of the roof complete, the complex is finally finished and ready to be put into operation. Guards will now place themselves at all important defensive posts and perform their duty as defenders. As you can see, the fortress fits perfectly into the overall image of the castle and, of course, makes it look even more intimidating and powerful. With this, almost all the buildings are finished, although there are still a few missing. But we can now move on to step 7, the preparation for the royal garden. A royal garden, of course, does not simply consist of some trampling paths and flower beds. The royal gardeners at the court take care that everything keeps its order. Therefore, I had first taken care to adapt and reshape the terrain into something less wild. With stone bricks, I tried to create different levels on which then again different flowers, plants and decorations can stand. The whole thing is connected by small stairs and paths, but I spare you the details and show you the result rather again on the basis of a small transition. As you can see, the garden inside the castle is quite small, which is simply explained by the geographical location. More elements of a royal garden can also be added later. Of course, what must not be missing in such a pious royal household is an in-house chapel where the priest at court says mass every Sunday. Faith strengthens the people both in God and in their rulers. Faith is very widespread in this land. Farmers pray to the gods so that their fields will survive the next summer drought and always bear abundant fruit. Soldiers too often feel inspired by their deep connection to the gods through their faith in battle and fight even more relentlessly for the kingdom. So you see, it is important in this land to always build enough places to which people can go on pilgrimage in their greatest need. That was pretty quick. So far, we have prepared the garden to a large extent only once. The decorations and the plants will follow later. Now we continue with step 8, the backside. The backside is to become more or less the private area of the royal family with opportunities for relaxation. Since I'm not going to work on the interior design in this video, I guess it's enough to tell you that the design of this building complex is supposed to be based on a spa. I plan to have several pools with warm water in this area, as well as seating areas for spending time together. Today I only got as far as finishing the building, but the rest of the work is still going on my list. What you can see here is simply another entrance that will later lead into the main hall of the castle, creating a connection between the dungeon area and the spa. I had this area planned out as well, which is why the ugly frame had to be removed first. Later in the dungeon area you will find all sorts of scoundrels and traitors who have betrayed the trust of the gods and proved themselves unworthy of this kingdom. As you can see in the upper left corner, I initially connected the dungeon and the spa with a wooden floor, but this turned out to be a bad idea because the whole thing looked a bit too shabby for the king to walk along. So the floor had to be removed and replaced by stone instead. In the course of the rebuild, however, I took direct care to insert andesite from time to time to make the floor look a little more used. And that's it. The last stones are set, which would be the connection between spa and dungeon erected. And with that we have already completed the largest area of the castle. We are already at the beginning of June with the recordings, which clearly points to the end of the video. I am very excited to read what you have to say about today's episode, so please don't forget to leave a comment. The castle has already really taken shape and there's actually only one last step missing, but for that I had to re-equip myself at home. However, I would like to allow myself a small recap at this point. Our new castle is almost ready. So far we have accomplished a lot. Among other things, we have adjusted the mountain a bit so that we have enough space for the construction of our castle as well as future projects. So with that we have left step 1 behind us. Second, we took care of the foundation, which was very boring and took a long time but wasn't really hard. Step 2, done. Step 3 on the other hand was anything but boring. A truly enjoyable work that demanded a lot of creativity, and that even though I forgot a small part. Next on the list we had the towers, and I really enjoyed working on those as well, as it was really fun to come up with a design that didn't look strange even from a distance. Step 4, the towers, also completed at this point. With the main castle I'm really glad that my planning ended up working out the way I wanted. I can't stand it when I end up with odd or even numbers somewhere and then have to come up with different designs for the walls. All in all, it worked out very well. One of the last 2 steps was building the fortress, and I really enjoyed everything about that, and I hope you did too. So in the future we are already safe from any attacks. In between we also briefly took care of preparing the garden, although this was rather a minor matter compared to the other steps. The latest step we've taken is of course the back of the castle with the associated connection to the front. So we've really accomplished a lot up to this point, which is why it's now also time to devote a little time to the things that have fallen by the wayside. For example, we would have 2 incomplete towers to decorate the side entrance, now also completed. Furthermore, at the back of the castle I took care of replacing the dirt with stone so that it looks a little more civilized. The bare dungeon area also got an upgrade. The window you can see there in the center will later belong to the main hall in the castle. Last but not least, the entrance area directly behind the castle gate got a little glow up, so there are cobbled paths there now as well. So what remains now but to devote a little to the decoration of the garden in step 7.2. The first thing I did? I really wanted to have a greenhouse in the castle garden because I think that some of the members of the royal family, despite their ancestry, are passionate about botany. So I wanted to build a greenhouse. Here I stayed relatively rustic, although I think the design looks very good with the dark oak wood and the white glass. Of course, only the very finest fruits and vegetables are grown here and tended with care by the servants. With the decoration in the outside area, I could really let off steam again, and even if the entire castle is my fantasy and my creativity, it was something else to be able to work so freely on the garden. The whole thing really made me want to do more, and I have firmly resolved to do more in the organic area in the future, so that I can also improve in this direction. Moreover, some of you have wished for this and I take your wishes to heart. In between, I kept walking around the area, using F3 to find places where monsters might spawn and to light up those places. At this point, you can watch me fail over and over again. I wanted to build 2 large glass domes, but for some reason I couldn't manage to build a dome that looked good on my own. In the end, I had to resort to a website and build the whole thing step by step according to instructions. Probably another reason to practice things like that. But here again, the final attempt, as I said, this time with the help of a website. However, I didn't need any more help decorating the dome. Various large flowers are used here again, as well as glowberries, bamboo and sugarcane. These glass domes represent, so to speak, the highlight of the royal gardens, and that's why I have given myself again especially much effort. I want bees to fly around there later, which is why I decorated everything with enough flowers for honey. Also, of course, the honey from the royal garden is reserved exclusively for the royal family. A common citizen will probably never be able to taste this honey. I had to get the hives from home at the very end, because I knew that a few were still hiding in my chests. Overall, I also made an effort to texture all the pathways using different blocks to build them. While I have to admit that the paths didn't turn out quite the way I wanted them to, but I'm still happy with how they look. There we go, a nice and cozy spot for all the bustling bees. The second glass dome is right next to the first, just one level above. I didn't deviate from the design for the second one, it just got a little bigger. The decorations are the same, and also this dome should later become the home of several little bees. In the end, I still had one or the other corner in which neither flowers nor decorations stood. Of course, this should definitely change, which is why I tried 2 things. On the left side in the video, you can see the area directly next to the second dome, where I have built a chill out area with a cozy seating area and hanging glowberries as a decoration and a light source. Also, a small self-made tree may not be missing there, of course. On the right side you can see me building a small pond area, which is again one level above. Here I first put up a few smaller custom trees, which were then supplemented by various hedges. In the center of this area is a self-built pond, which is often visited by the high priests, as the water springing here is believed to have magical powers. Prayers are said to ensure that the spring never runs dry. The princess also spends many hours at this place, perhaps the reason for her outstanding popularity and beauty? Who knows? The very last area I worked on is the area where the guards of the castle train, fortify themselves with good food, and mend or improve their equipment and weapons. For this I have again browsed on Pinterest and stumbled among other things on an archery range, which I find extremely suitable for our castle. So I was inspired by it and quickly designed my own little shooting range, where the soldiers can now practice their skills with the bow or the crossbow. Somewhere outside the actual castle grounds I also envisioned a military barracks with more such buildings to come. A horse stable could also have been built, but unfortunately there was no longer enough space for that. But then, to improve the equipment, there comes a small shelter for melting metal and forging new items. In this way the soldiers are always prepared for any eventuality. The area was, of course, as it should be, again decorated with various elements such as hedges and a corresponding path, indicated with different blocks. For the soldiers, a more muddy and unkempt walkway is probably quite appropriate, because the heavy armor boots are not meant for delicate marble floors and sink anyway at every opportunity in the mud. Therefore, I am very happy with this area, and I hope you are too. Well guys, here we are. The castle is ready. We've just completed the last step, and with that being completed, there is nothing more to do at this point. I am super happy with the result, and I'm already looking forward to the future where we will gradually breathe more and more life into this kingdom. I had an enormous amount of fun working on this project. I really thank you guys for watching the video this far. Furthermore, I really appreciate your support. Look forward to more content in the future. At the end, however, I would like to give you the statistics of today's project. A total of 82 recordings were made, 113 time lapses were rendered, and all that in 446 Minecraft days. In real time, the whole thing took... well, how long actually? Have you been paying attention? Post the correct number of hours in the comments below, because one of those who posts the correct number of hours in the comments will be drawn to give his name to our mighty mage at court in the future. Of course, your name will be adapted a bit to the Middle Ages, but still, you will be the most powerful wizard in this kingdom, at least for now. But now, thanks a lot guys for watching, and now I wish you another wonderful day, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.